So good afternoon. I'm Dr. Dipali Dewan. I'm the Dan Mishra Curator of Global South Asia here at the ROM. This museum is situated upon the ancestral lands of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Anishinaabeg Nation, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, since time immemorial to today. I acknowledge the communities who have historically lived on and cared for this land and who still do so today. I acknowledge the legacies of colonialism, violence, and extraction that have and continue to challenge their relationship to this land. I invite us to reflect on these as past and as present histories. As a diasporic person whose life has been shaped by multiple migrations, I'm committed to understanding the history that has allowed me to settle here and my responsibilities to it. These include acknowledging and thanking the ancestors of this land, sharing resources and being conscious of what I use, working towards making sure the history of harm to Indigenous communities does not repeat itself, and ensuring my own journey of learning is proactive, ongoing, and evolving. So thank you for joining us today. It's one of the few in-person programs we've been able to do at the ROM. We're starting to get back into in-person programs, balanced with our online programming schedule as well. And I know it takes effort to come out, especially on days like this where it's cold and windy and rainy. And so definitely I don't take for granted seeing you all here today. And I think there is something to be said for being here together in person. However, we are making a recording of this and it will be available online later as well. I'm delighted to be able to welcome you today to ROM Connect's Experimental Visions, which celebrates the extraordinary work of three unique contemporary artists, Tazeen Qayyum, Sumaira Tazeen, and Reeta Saeed. This program marks a landmark donation of their work into ROM's collections. This consists of 20 works, several works by each artist that were done over a period of time and reflect an evolution in their artwork. The whole collection is actually scrolling behind me, so you can get a sense of it all. It will be available also to view on the ROM website by the end of the year, and several works will be on view in an upcoming exhibition opening next summer, curated by ROM curator Dr. Famida Suleiman. The artists' work is shaped by their experiences as women from the South Asian Islamic world and as diasporic people, and each has a unique approach within the field of contemporary art. Specifically, the work is grounded in training from the National College of Art in Lahore, Pakistan, a school that has had a transformative effect on a generation of artists, and as they've gone out in the world and received international acclaim, one can say on a generation of contemporary art speaking broadly. The NCA was founded in 1875 as a colonial art school focused on design and industry in what gets called traditional crafts. Over the years, it was transformed into an art school with a relationship to the artistic heritage of the subcontinent. It was through studying, referencing, and playing with historical painting styles from the South Asian and Islamic world, which often erroneously gets called miniature painting, that a generative and popular program of contemporary art experimentation emerged, inspired by the work of visionary teachers like Zahoor ul-Akhlaq, Bashir Ahmed, and now Imran Qureshi. Miniature painting is characterized by fine line work, floral borders, natural colors, and geometric patterns, but it has now inspired work spanning sculpture, installation art, and video art, as our artists will discuss. So this landmark donation of 20 works has been made by the collector and philanthropist Ali Adel Khan. I met Adel 20 years ago when I had just started at the ROM, and he was a businessman with an interest in contemporary South Asian art. Over the years, I've appreciated his dedication and passion that has pushed him to collect, curate, write, and in general, advocate for artists from South Asia and the diaspora to bring this work more visibility in Canada through first SAGA, the South Asian Gallery of Art, an initiative he founded based in Oakville, and most recently through the SAGA Foundation, the Shela and Adel Giving for Art Foundation, also Saga. See what he did there? Supporting a range of art forms emanating from South Asia and encouraging discourse on visual arts. I am grateful to Ali Adel Khan for supporting the artists we are featuring today. That support has lasted for over 2 decades, for having the foresight to collect their work as it evolved, and for having the vision to share it with the world through ROM's collection. And Adil, I know you're here. If you could just stand very briefly, we can acknowledge you. Thank you. And ultimately, no collector can operate without the support of his family. And I want to acknowledge Adil's wife, Shela, and their children, Nadia and Adnan, who are also here today. Maybe you guys can just quickly stand for us. Thank you. When I first discussed this gift to the ROM's collection with Adil, we felt that there was no better time than this year, which marks Pakistan's 75th anniversary. I had the opportunity to visit Pakistan for the first time earlier this month to attend the Karachi Biennale. I feel only a fraction of the country by visiting Karachi and Lahore. But however, at that same time, I feel like I really got a sense of the depth of its history and its vibrant contemporary art scene. And it was all very exciting. So today's program will highlight the work of 3 artists, Tazeen, Sumaira, and Reeta, and their influences from personal experiences as immigrants, women, and racialized people in Canada, to concerns around global politics and war. And I am very sorry to say that, in fact, Reeta was not feeling well earlier, so she's unable to join us today, but I have no doubt that there will still be a robust conversation, which will be led by my colleague, Dr. Fahmida Suleiman, ROM's curator of the Islamic world. Dr. Suleiman oversees a collection spanning archaeological artifacts from the 700s to objects from the present day, including modern and contemporary Middle Eastern art. She has worked on a number of exhibitions since joining the ROM in 2019, including Unmasking the Pandemic, which featured 100 masks by artists across 23 countries. She is also working on an exhibition on the Indian Ocean, and her exhibition Being and Belonging, featuring modern artwork by female artists across the Islamic world, opens in July of 2023, the one I had mentioned earlier. She is also conducting a research project on the tradition of female silversmithing in southern Oman. So I'll invite Fahmida to come up on stage. Tazeen Qayyum is a Pakistani-Canadian multidisciplinary artist, trained as a miniature painter of South Asian and Persian traditions. Qayyum continues to explore new materials and processes through drawing, installation, sculpture, video, and performance. Drawing from complex issues of belonging and displacement within a socio-political context, her art is a way for her to navigate identity and beliefs living in the diaspora. Qayyum's work has been exhibited across the globe. She received her BFA in Visual Arts from the National College of Arts, Lahore, Pakistan in 1996, and currently lives and works in Oakville, Canada. Tazeen, can I ask you to come on stage? And Sumaira Tazeen is a Canadian visual artist, educator, and curator of Pakistani origin. She received her BFA in miniature painting and sculpture from the National College of Art, Lahore, Pakistan, in 1996 also. Since then, her work has been exhibited in established group and solo exhibitions across South Asia, the United States, Canada, Europe, and the Middle East. She was selected as a 2018 Artist in Residence for the city of Kitchener, and she has curated a show at the ROM on South Asian Heritage Day in 2013 and conducted specialized art workshops and courses at the Aga Khan Museum, Kitchener Waterloo Art Gallery, and the University of Waterloo. And I invite Sumaira to join us on stage. So I will remind you all to put your phones on silent so the conversation doesn't get interrupted, and I'll let you lovely folks take it away.
Everyone can hear me? Just making sure we've switched the presentation now for the session. And I want to take this opportunity to thank Ali Adil Khan and his family as well for this most generous and most exciting donation. And several of the works will appear next July in the exhibition Being and Belonging, so I hope that everybody here will attend that. So let me start by welcoming Tazeen and Sumaira. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We're going to try and make this sort of conversational, but I have prepared some questions for them, and those questions will be illustrated with very beautiful images at the back. We'll try and deal with the lights so that you can enjoy. If there's a moment where you can't hear us or we're talking too fast, then just raise your hand, and we will entertain audience Q&A after the 4 or 5 questions that I'm going to ask them. Okay, so everybody settle in. This is going to be super exciting. I think the most appropriate thing for us to do, I think my first question really, is to start by asking you a little bit, let's get a bit deeper with your artistic practice and the trajectory of your work. Now, because we don't have very much time, I'm going to set a challenge for you. If you were to pick 6 slides out of your entire life that sort of represent that trajectory, even if it's the recent trajectory, what would they be? And I think I'm going to start with Tazeen first.
Sure. So yeah, I want to begin by thanking the ROM and Dr. Dipali and Pramida for inviting us and to speak today. And because I think us sitting here today at an institution like the ROM, marks an important point in the decolonial discourse, because as much as our work does. And I would like to thank Ali Adil Khan for making that possible, this conversation. So thank you so much, Adil and Sheila, for your generous gift. So can I just... Yeah, you can take charge. So to briefly sum up my practice, I'll try. So I work across mediums, and performance, video, painting, sculpture, as Dipali was also mentioning. And mostly my concerns are based on my own displaced identity, my voice, and where I see myself in this country and before. And and experiences that I go through and people around me go through. So so those are the issues and that I work with. The influences I think that are prominent in my practice, which come from the rigorous training of miniature painting and from the National College of Arts, I would say is my attention to detail and the way I have a tendency to say multiple narratives within one painting. I think that stems from my understanding of the tradition of miniature painting. And I think more than anything, it is the absolute focus that I work with, which I feel is also part of that training that I got, and where I to some extent feel that my entire being is on that tip of the brush or the pen, and I'm building the work stroke by stroke and making the marks. So I think those are the learnings that I still see in my practice, the way I organize my space, the way I organize my studio. I think all that discipline comes from that background of traditional miniature painting. People who are familiar with my work a little bit would know that for the past 20 years, there is this image of a cockroach that stuck with me. and creeps into my artwork in different forms. It has evolved over the years from painting to sculpture to large installations. But for me, what this particular motif does is it's representative of how we diminish value of human life and cultures. It stands in for the manifestation of fear, the manifestation of stereotyping, so basically I use this form or this object and narrate my concerns in that way. In many of my works, I mimic entomology museum displays because I feel archival practices parallel political propaganda. And for that purpose, this metaphor of the cockroach serves really well for what I'm trying to say. I often paint them or draw them in large numbers, sometimes dead, sometimes alive. And then I am talking about the idea of preserving and how we have a tendency to cultures and people we don't necessarily understand. We associate fear with them, and I think those are the concepts I explore when I mimic entomology museum displays in my work. So, for example, similarly in this case, you see the insect open up for investigation, and you're like, so it's under study, and again referencing cultures and people we do not necessarily know. We have a tendency to immediately try to learn them and open them and investigate them, and then tendency to label them. And I think labels play that very important role when we're archiving history, because it is how we would eventually read history and who writes them and what is true. And and to me it's also important how we not necessarily make change when some event is happening or a war is happening, but then we are more concerned about how history would be documented and how would those war museums be preserved for future. And similarly, there is this work where I am also looking at how the idea of preserving, where the cockroach, now I've used a new material called lucite, where I embed my paintings in this material, so they're in layers, and again talking about similar concepts of how cultures get preserved and documented and studied. And as you were seeing in an earlier slide, one of the sculpture is part of the collection that Adil has gifted to the ROM. This is I've also done large-scale installations. This is one of my most recent installation, and now you can see the cockroach keeps evolving from dead to alive to taking over spaces in large numbers. So in this, this was a site-specific piece that I recently did at the Bangkok Biennial, and where I was given the space of a historical museum Siam, and different spaces within that museum. I activated them using these patterns, creating these patterns, using these cockroaches. And again, I think this particular piece is, which is called Patterns of Resilience. I'm looking at it after what we've gone through COVID, or the unjust wars that are happening even today as we speak. I am looking at the whole idea that our survival actually depends on us coming together as community, counting on our resilience and coming together to manifest hope. And so this is the piece, that's what this particular piece talks about. I'm sorry, just take the sips. I also wanted to share these more recent works, the drawings that I'm creating using, breaking the cockroach down into fictional language and alphabets and letters. Because I think when we talk about colonial history, languages are extremely important, because languages too get erased or devalued in that process as cultures do. And so I want to look and reflect on that idea. And now what I'm doing is I'm creating this, this made up language. And to decode this language, the code lies in how, in how we behave now, in how in the in the hate or the war-driven environment. So the code of this language relies on that. So this is like a more recent drawing series that I'm working on. So I can probably stop here and...
Thank you so much, Tazeen. That was amazing how you were able to take us on the journey together. I have so many questions, and I know the audience will too, but we'll wait on the questions because I want to give Sumaira an opportunity now. Sumaira, talk to us about your unique approach to the tradition of miniature painting and kind of your recent trajectory.
Thank you. First of all, my thank you to ROM, Dr. Dipali, Fahmida for bringing me to this platform, and my special thanks to Adil for bringing my works to the museum. I am really excited. I would like to say that my work is basically my life. It runs parallel to my experiences, what I have faced. But I always say one thing, that is, it's your personal expression that always become a general norm. Whenever you go in the gallery, you see the artist's work, but you relate it with your own experiences. So that's how I just talk about my work, and it's more sort of life as a woman, and it is a bit of feminist in orientation, but I'm not sort of a feminist, but yes, I do talk about the issues related to women mostly. And I would like to talk about my recent work that I am planning, doing, and it's the series that called Sabz-Bagh, and this all started in 2011. Bagh is basically a garden, and in miniature painting, when you see, they're always Mughal kings, or they're surrounded by a border, which is actually a garden. And that used to symbolize the gardens of heavens. And I also, in Arabic also, garden is Jannah, which you feel that everything will be in abundance for you, and maybe that will be up there, but I feel that you create that garden around yourself in this life also. So that's what I am doing, and that gardens kind of just takes place in several mediums that I am now working, and it's now become more sort of multidisciplinary because I'm working with a video, sound pieces, installation, painting, as well as some sort of sculptural pieces. So I would like to start with a video work that I did in 2011. It's just a one minute video. I would like to see that, and then we can just move forward from that. So, I should, okay. So it's basically a commentary on a garden that's been created. So if you notice that the garden is actually creating in a way that we paint in miniature painting, we start making tendrils and the leaf appears and the flowers afterwards. So that's how it, and it was a conversation about how female body is being taken, and I have taken my own self and printed it like as a Mughal king or queen, and it was a conversation. So that garden actually, I moved in Canada in 2012. So this was just one year before that. And when I came here, I just started again exploring the. Is it forward one more time? Yeah. So this is the large scale work that I had previously worked also with the sunflower, and this was a very significant pattern in my work from before as well. And this was a large scale work that I created at the Art Gallery of Mississauga, and it was a conversation basically of my own personal self, and this is one part of the Sabzbach series. And it's can you all hear me, right? Okay. So this is basically a pattern inside the sunflower, and it's an androgynous flower, and it has male and female together. And I feel that as humans, we also have both the genders in ourselves. So that's how I was taking it, and that was symbolizing the larger garden of my life, how as an immigrant I have moved here. So basically, this is 2005, and I had created this larger garden installation in which I, as an immigrant, facing the challenges, and it was kind of a talk between the good and the bad, or the struggles that we follow as an immigrant. And it's really hard and challenging to move from one place to other, as I feel that probably you feel that you back home you were more established, and then you had to go through all the basic struggles of survival. So that's kind of the piece that I created, and I used vintage suitcases where I placed video works, and these video works were basically the works that I did all over Canada, and just taking the videos of the more happy life that I was looking through, going to the festivals, going to the events, going to Niagara Falls, just simple basic things. And the sound pieces were basically the interviews of South Asian women, and they were talking about their experiences when they moved to Canada. So I took somebody who moved to Canada in like 50s or earlier, and then there are different stages. So, but I felt that the experiences were the same. Even somebody who came long ago is just by somebody who is close enough is the same experience. And so this is what the garden is about. You are all looking for the garden that is more heaven or good for you, but you still go through the struggles. I'm still creating this garden, and you're taking the symbol of iris, which is more significant, and the symbol of hope. And yeah, so this is 2018 was the time when I had an artist residency at the city of Kitchener. I was the artist in residence, and it made me realize the different challenges that I felt through, and I was creating that garden of hope. So this symbol of flowers and motifs keep coming back and in my work, and still doing the same. So the basic struggle currently, I feel that what is, as an immigrant, that happens, it happened with me. And there is a lot of financial struggle when you come here or when you come from another country. And in that financial struggle, your relationship kind of breaks up, because there is always struggle of or the challenge that you have to face. I also had to face this challenge, and in that I felt that there's domestic abuse that comes in your life, and that happened to me. So my work is also talking about the challenges as a woman who have faced the domestic abuse, and the right challenges of having a child also. So, but I'm still hopeful in making the gardens, which are the gardens of hope for me. These are my most recent works. And this work has actually evolved when I was doing gilding on the wall.
Bring it teeny bit closer.
Gilding on the wall. These flowers were all gilded, and then the process is basically you do pouncing, which is a kind of a perforation, and then you pounce a powder onto the wall to transfer the image. So in this, I did gilding on top, but when I was doing that, I reached to the conclusion that why not just try this pouncing as is and make it more sort of sensual and drawing-like. So that's how I end up in this. And then again, that site-specific work or my installation reappeared in many forms. I have done these several installations. It is one of the other example. This was done for the Oakville Memorial Hospital, and that same perforation, I didn't do gilding on this part, and I just moved on to the more sensual and ephemeral space. Yeah, and then this is my most recent and more sort of personal work where it is basically another hope, and I'm just creating these gardens, and this is basically more carbon transfer and line-based work, which is obviously my practice as a miniature painter. And yeah, it's just all the details, attention, and inspiration from the symbols from the miniature paintings, and just reappears in my work. That's how it just goes upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Sumaira. Thank you, Tazeen. Such beautiful, fantastic explorations of your work. If we could, you've shown us a multitude of approaches and directions. You are complete rule breakers in terms of the tradition of miniature painting. I know that that's a contested term, and Dipali also mentioned the colonial roots to that term, but others have expressed it as more of an attitude. And I feel that attitude that you've shared with us. You've shown us so many approaches and directions. Which of those would you say was the most exciting or most challenging medium for you? Tazeen.
I think I can safely say that for me, the most enduring, challenging, as well as transforming works are my drawings, text-based drawings. They're performative. This is where basically the cockroach, the outward exploration, my political exploration, turned more inwards. And through these works, they take me to a place which is more personal, more in dialogue with myself, as well as a place which gives me a space to really reflect and think. Because I think at certain point, your activism turns somewhat poetic, and you reach a point where you really want to question. Like, I started questioning a lot of things around me, including myself, like, why am I here? What is my contribution? What do I do? And, why does this happen? And, every time we keep making the same mistakes, we keep repeating the same things. So, there comes a point that you really want to close your studio and just, take it all out on something. So that is where this practice came in. And the cockroach got replaced by text, by words, in my native language, Urdu. So what I do with these drawings is I select important words, sometimes singular, sometimes phrases, and then I write them continuously, repetitively, for hours at a time. And mostly they've all been in circular form, where I feel there is no beginning or an end, and it just there is movement. When I'm making these drawings, I put this slide in so you could see that I actually am on the paper, sitting on the paper, and I start from either the center or the outside, and I'm just writing a single word again and again and again. Because I think, repetition becomes it is meditative, right? And a lot of meditations rely on repetition. But what it also does is it gives you another way of understanding and thinking and approaching the world. So that's what this practice does. That the drawing. So there are several drawings that I've done in this medium. I'm drawing with archival ink using a pen. So now the brush is removed, but the mark making remains in the same manner. The drawing that you see, it's titled Sahi Ghalat. So I title these drawings based on the word that I'm writing, and they're always in Urdu or Persian languages. Again, in certain ways, this work is also, I'm reclaiming that language too, like living here now in Canada. And I find it really interesting that I've started, I title them in, like I said, in the Urdu words, but my audience is by and large non-Urdu speaking. But I'm enjoying that notion that to understand this word, these drawings, they say it in English. So many, the gallerist, and they're saying these words in Urdu, and to me that's an interesting thing happening right there, right, where a language that I've lost, and it's sort of a reclaiming of that too. So that drawing is Sahi Ghalat. Sahi Ghalat would translate to right and wrong. And how I created that work is like I drew one circle writing one word, Sahi, clockwise, and then I would go around writing Ghalat counterclockwise. And I kept repeating these circles for I don't know how many days. And so in a way, there are also these two inseparable concepts of right and wrong. I mean, what is right and what is wrong, and who decides that? And at the same time, we're always in that flux of making our choices based on these, what we consider right and what we consider wrong. So each of these drawings have these important words that I kind of think about. They could be political, they could be social, they could be personal. So those words are chosen based on, that moment from where I am. I just wanted to share one example from that series. This drawing called Barabari and Bartari, which you can see translate to equality and privilege. So this came about in the wake of the 2020 social justice movement, which started from the US, and how all of us were affected by that during COVID, and I thought and when all those I just want to reflect on that that how this drawing came about is when the Black Lives Matters movement and the protests were happening in 2020, a lot of institutions and organizations were immediately issuing solidarity statements, and they were coming, and which is great, which is wonderful. But at the same time, I was questioning that, why it seemed somewhat tokenism to me as well. And then, why now? Why weren't you thinking about these things before? And so, I was questioning that, and I wanted to draw those words, that what is equality and what is privilege, and I think at the same time it was COVID, and that too really brought the stark reality of how inequality exists in our world today, right? For some, COVID was like ideal vacations. You get spending time with your family now, and people were spending time on social media. But yet there were so many who lost their livelihoods and their loved ones, and so just those ideas. And I've drawn these words multiple times because I just keep thinking about them more and more now.
I think the slides don't do justice to how beautiful these works are in person. And the ROM is blessed to have been able to acquire Sahi Galat and through Dipali, and that is one of the pieces that will be in the show next year. It's jaw-droppingly beautiful when you look at them. And they really move you, they really touch your heart, particularly the words that she chooses. And as you said, the COVID amplified the inequality and the privilege in our society, and lineups for food banks just went around the block, and all of these things we take for granted, they really came to the fore. We still have more questions to go, so I want to pass it on to Sumaira. Sumaira, if you can offer just, sort of maybe 7 minutes of a little bit about what was it in terms of the media, what was the most exciting and experiment that you did in your artistic practice?
I would say that for me the challenge was to go from small to a large scale. I had the tendency to make smaller paintings, and that was just a biggest challenge that I faced, and I got a chance to got out of that my safer zone in 2011, where I actually painted onto the wall and did a site-specific work. Although I painted it the way it was painted in like miniature painting, this is a collaborative piece that I did with an artist, Reeta Saeed, and he did this small thing, and my challenge was what to do with this. And the small stamp says, "Yahan art karna mana hai." You are not allowed to make art here. And this was the comment on the graffiti that you see all over in Karachi or Pakistan, and usually it is that graffiti says it's a shame, I don't know, it's odd, I can say that, you're not allowed to piss here, yahan peshab karna mana hai. So this was the word that he actually took on and says yahan art karna mana hai. So I had a challenge, was I thought to create a garden that I was already doing, as you saw in my video. That was also the part of that same show, and I actually painted this onto the wall for several days and created this piece. So this was the breaking ground for me to come out of my safe zone and create larger pieces. When I moved to Canada and I did that gilded piece of Sabz Bagh with the sunflower pattern, and then I moved on to my bigger installations. So that I felt that as the most challenging work for me, which made me do more exciting works.
Are you continuing to do more site-specific works, or?
Well, I'm hoping to do more, and I've already done several, but let's see it's how it takes another turn and where it goes.
Thank you. Okay, so that was the last slide for that one?
Yes. Yeah, so this is the piece that I again a site-specific installation, and the larger works that I did, and this was done at Art Gallery of Mississauga. So that installation I always recreate along with the specific space that I received, and yeah, so this was done. Sometimes I have this whole space of a gallery to create my whole garden. That was in Pakistan in 2015, and this is 2017. So yeah, that's how it just moves on. Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. Oh, great. Okay, so we move on to question 3.
I'm going a bit faster.
No, it's very good. I'll come back to you, Sumaira, because I think I'd like you to start with question 3. It's really about. We can see that both of your works are very autobiographical. They're very personal experiences, whether they're relating to gender, whether they relate to the homeland that you've left behind, or your experiences as racialized women in Canada. I know you've touched upon this as we've gone, but could we dig a little deeper into some aspect of your work that is very personal?
Yeah, sure. So I would, this is basically a screenshot of a video that I created in 2018 when I was an artist in residence. This was the time when and this is the most personal work that I feel that represents my feelings as well as the women who faces their challenges as an immigrant and going through domestic abuse. And this work was actually also the part of several performances that I did during my residency at several occasions in different events. And I am actually biting a birch bark. Birch bark is extensively used in miniature paintings histories ago, and it is also used by the native women who create patterns by biting birch bark.
So the Canadian Indigenous women?
Canadian Indigenous women also create patterns by biting birch bark. And here I am taking the expression of biting as also the expression for taking out your anger and frustration. Because I feel that when you're angry, you clench your teeth, you bite your teeth in aggression. When you are not able to talk your concerns or make arguments. So this is what happens with me, and I created this longer video piece where I am tearing up the bark, and one where it's a 2-channel video work that I created, and I was just biting it and showing my frustration. So I felt this more sort of a very personal work that I created, and yeah.
Is there a place where people can view this video? Is it available, or are there plans to show it?
Yes, this video is being selected by the Redhead Gallery, and the show is on 1st of December. So I will be part of that show, and that show video can be seen there at that
Where is
exhibition.
Redhead Gallery?
It's at
401 Richmond, downtown.
Excellent. So everyone can did you say 1st of December?
Yes,
Yes.
that's the opening.
It was a call for submission, and
Wonderful.
I think so. Probably 200 or plus artists have submitted their works, and 17 were selected. So this is part of that show.
Okay, all right.
I'm excited for that.
And now, Tazeen, I'm pointing the same question at you again. We've seen a lot of, we've learned a lot about Tazeen Qayyum today already, but I would like you to share just another work for me that you felt was very autobiographical or personal.
I wanted to show this work because I thought, I wanted to approach this differently as well, like the autobiography. This work was done at the Pearson Airport here in Toronto, and I was invited to come in and create a work there in 2013. So exactly like 10 years after I came to Canada through the same airport. So at that invitation, I just thought it's really significant when I got invited into the airport to create a work, because where I come from and where the issues and the concepts that I work with, airport as a site becomes really important, because like being a traveling and all the turbulences and all the trials that come with crossing borders as a Muslim, going especially into the US, and and since 9/11, post 9/11, all that, how our world has transformed, security and traveling has become like a traumatic experience for many of us. So I wanted to reflect my work to reflect on that, as well as airport as a site for an immigrant, and not just my own, immigrant history, but also like my parents' immigration when, and my grandparents who had to force immigrate to Pakistan when at the time of partition. So I wanted my work to reflect on that. I mean, to begin with, what I did was I made like these paper cutouts of my cockroaches quickly. And I got, like very generously, the curator then at the airport, Lee Petrie, she allowed me with some security passes. So me and my, my partner, Faisal Anwar, who's also an artist, we were allowed to go anywhere at the airport and photograph. And also, I would create these small interventions, sort of disrupting the running of the airport, and these cockroaches would be placed somewhere, anywhere, and then I would videograph them and photograph them. And they were shot like 15 minutes or 20 minutes in installations throughout the airport. And that entire experience was very strangely liberating, right? There was like, we two brown Muslims with our cameras could go anywhere at the airport, even, past the securities, even at the runway. Like I was allowed to go on the runway and place the cockroaches there. So I think, that's why I reflect on this work as somewhat, like autobiographical in that way. The installation that came out of that experience looked like this, where I covered the entire space, creating a pattern with cutout cockroaches in acrylic, so they're sculptural, and each one of them is painted individually and then placed individually to create this pattern. And to me, this this pattern is reflective of a march. I mean, it can look like a military march. It could also look like how we move bodies and people through immigration or refugee camps, or that movement, which is again significant of the airport. And as part of the installation, I had these chairs from the waiting lounge, and I painted them, with the style that you see in Mughal miniature paintings. And these chairs, I thought, are also very significant in terms of, so many people at the airport use them every day, and you don't really know who's sitting next to you, but it's a transition between one journey to the other. And that's how I feel that, like my life is also in transition between two cultures. You're neither here nor there. And I just felt these chairs really speak to that. And so I made them part of this installation. Yeah.
If only the airport had these chairs everywhere. They are so beautiful. An anecdote, I went to Tazeen and Faisal's house to look with Dipali at Sahi Galat in the flesh, and we finished looking at that work, and we were completely awestruck by it. And then my eyes went to those chairs, and she has them like surrounded by plants and all kinds of things. And I said, "What is this?" And then she explained them to me, and I said, "Right, they have to be in Being and Belonging." So the chairs will be in the exhibition next year as well. Okay, this is good. We're still in good timing here. Actually, I'm going to ask my last question, and then we can move on to audience Q&A. So we talked about autobiography, we talked about personal histories and experiences, your own stories, but your works also address social issues, cultural issues, political issues. You've made that clear to us. I wondered if you wanted to share any other specific works that maybe talk more of, they could be international issues, they could be universal issues, not just personal ones. And I believe we're starting with Sumaira first. Yes.
So this is kind of very first works that of my artistic journey started in early 2000s, and I was looking at that time the major issue of the dowry in Pakistan, the way marriages being happen in our society as South Asian. And if probably many of you are familiar with the trunk that come in our houses. I have seen that trunk at my grandmother's, who had got her in when she got married. I saw this in my aunt's houses. I have seen my mom bringing it. One for each girl in my family, they had these, and I had always had question of why this trunk comes in every house, even way before marriages when they are kid, and the mom started filling those dowry trunks with the stuff and the different type of things that the girl is supposed to take when she get married. So I had always questioned that idea of the dowry. Why is it so important? And I was always against it. And I had painted these trunks, and I have seen these trunks in many forms. Sometimes they become an iron stand, sometimes they are behind the curtain, sometimes in many forms. So these were the smaller works that were inspired from the Basholi School of Art, where the formats were more squarish and the backgrounds were black. And I had been doing that unconsciously, painting black backgrounds and working with reds. But somebody actually pointed out a book to me and said, "See, look, this is what you are doing, the square formats and the black backgrounds." And then that actually became the sort of my trademark that still comes in my work. And So I had painted these several works, and this Peti work, one of the Peti work is also part of the collection for ROM now, and I've experimented with a lot of imagery as well as the form of breaking up the construction of miniature painting as a plain two-dimensional work into a three-dimensional work. And this was the first time when I actually played with the wasli, which is the paper that we create paintings on. And I was also putting the odd objects that are usually out of that trunk, but I have kept those inside the trunk. So it was also a conversation that how odd things can be part of something that we are not actually looking at. So this is how I feel that the most important work or the social issue that I have talked about, because it was also part of my life, but it is also important in our society as a Pakistani artist as well. And yeah, so this is the work. This is one of the details, and I had experimented with a lot of different fabric mediums or textiles, lace and the brocade, and actually the cushions were actually the gota or the brocade from my mom's wedding clothes. So that's how I have made it more personalized. Yeah. So yes.
Okay.
You want me to go back to?
Go. You can actually move forward to Tazeen. It's same question for you. Yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to, probably end on this slide of my work. It's the drawing practice that I was talking about earlier. So I do public performances as well, where I'm, either on the street in Toronto or in an environment surrounded by people, in gallery spaces too. And I again draw one particular word that I choose. And so this is a video. This is a video work that came out of this performative drawing. So what I find interesting, coming to your question in this practice is that, when I place my own body in public as well, but at the same time, I remove myself from that space too, because I'm usually very focused and, like bent down or looking at the work, or in this case, writing on glass and drawing. I think what I'm trying to explore here, I'm trying to see this work from the viewer's point of view, because I see when they experience like this body and this word, but a word that they not necessarily can read, but there is this sense of communication that takes place where I think this work sort of transcends culture and those boundaries, because there is something for the viewer to take with them when they see this. There is something that draws them in and makes them think and reflect. And most of the time, the words that I choose, like in this case, it's the word khayal or ehsas when I'm doing these public performances. So khayal means to care for, to care for yourself, to care for others, to care for what's around you, and be careful. And I think it's a really important word to reflect on. And I think it's also how this video was presented. It was right at a very busy intersection of Bay and Queen Street on the TD Bank art wall. And I think it made so much sense there, because in our busy life, and when we're like always rushing and commuting and running from one thing to another, we really need to slow down. And especially after what we've gone through in the past 2 years, we really need to reflect on how we care for each other, and those messages of building hope, building community, building a better world. And I think, for me, that's what this work is about.
It's a beautiful way of ending, to talk about community and hope and caring for each other. And what's interesting is even the words that you choose, they often have multiple layers of meaning as well, where khayal can mean take care, but it can mean thought process. In the Arabic context, a khayal is a performance, khayal azil, like the shadow play, and I think it's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you so much. I think what we're going to do is close the program now, and we have some coffee and tea out in the lower rotunda. So please join us for a hot drink, and if you'd like to meet the artists, I'm sure they'd be willing to mingle for a little bit out there. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Have a great day and a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.